the more you can talk with other people that are actually doing business, no matter what industry they're in, you can get to the next step. Because most of us that are successful know the block and tackle things to do. The people that don't, I'm willing to help them. Again, YouTube University, we put out a ton of content. You guys put out content. There's so much information out there. You can figure out those things to get to the next level. That's where we start to find people need groups and get to whatever they think the next level is.
Welcome to Get Real 411, the podcast where real experts give real advice on all things real estate. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Brad.
Join us as we explore real estate successes and pitfalls through the eyes of our esteemed guests.
Now let's get real.
Okay, today we are excited to have Ian Horowitz, the co-founder of Equity Warehouse, as our guest. Ian began his real estate journey in 2012 with his first rental property, and he has since significantly expanded his portfolio. He is actively involved in property flipping, aiding troubled homeowners, and providing subsidized housing. Currently, Ian and his team manage over 700,000 square feet of self-storage space. Ian, welcome to the show.
Jamie, how you doing? I'm excited to be on. It's a little later in the day because I'm on the other side of the country. So I'm wrapping up this beautiful day, and you guys are just right around lunchtime. But I'm excited to be here with you and Brad.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we're excited to get to know a little bit more about your story. Kind of an interesting background there because you definitely did not start off in the real estate field.
I did not start off in the real estate field. My background, actually, me and my business partner were both career firemen for the city of Baltimore. So if you ever watched The Wire, it's all true. That's exactly where we worked. If you saw the riots that happened in like 2014, 15-ish, it's all true. That's exactly where we worked. We were in the heart of it. And for the longest time, we thought that we were going to be big, bad city career firemen. We truly enjoyed our jobs. We truly enjoyed helping people. We enjoyed the adrenaline rush selfishly, but we always thought that was going to be our career paths for the next 30 years from when we got hired in 2007 and 2008, respectively.
Yeah, so it's not really an uncommon thing these days to find somebody with a career like that, which, it is. It's a career. Sometimes you have multiple careers in either firefighting or some other, public service. And build multiple pensions. But at some point, a lot of these folks wind up getting the real estate bug. So what I'd like to know that I think would be interesting for others that were in your position, that are in your position now, that might be a public servant, that might be, a firefighter, a police, and, thinking, God, I don't know if I want to do this forever. And I am on TikTok and other things. I'm seeing all these people kill it in real estate. How did you get started? Like, what was the template for that?
Yeah. So as I was just saying, we got hired in 2007 and 2008, and we all know what happened, right? Like, it was the global financial crisis. And, here we are, we're trading security, right? Like, yeah, I was working 80 hours a week as a landscaper, but like, I knew I had 80 hours of work to go and do. Like, I knew I could get paid. Here I am going to risk my life in exchange for less money, hoping to get job security. But within like a year of graduating the academy, we're talking about furloughs, pension systems. You guys are in California, right? Like, pension systems all up and down California going bankrupt, statewide pension systems. Detroit's going bankrupt with pension systems. And I'm sitting here looking at Baltimore. I'm like, this is a half a step above Detroit. So like, if they went bankrupt in a pension system, my God, like, what would happen with us? And we don't pay Social Security. Side by side with what you were just kind of alluding to is like, my wife wanted to start a family, right? And she wanted to have kids. And here I am risking my life. And while I love to help out others, it's like, it's almost selfish in a way to go and do that. And I was like, well, how can I make money and secure a retirement? How can I secure, God forbid, something happens to me? What's a business that my wife could operate? God forbid, I'm incapacitated, I'm killed, I can never work again. How can I continue to support my family? And one day I was at work, I was on a medic unit or something, and I was up, it was probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just laying there going, how can I make money while I'm laying here in this bed at work? And I said, well, I guess if someone rents my house, like I'm making money literally every second of the day. And that was like what started my interest into it, side by side with a few other like external forces of going to real estate meetings, running into people that were doing real estate. But those other factors of like being in an industry that you can get killed and being in an industry that like you want to be able to provide for your family long term and know that you have financial security long term. My initial goal was 10 houses that were worth $150,000 each that were paid off. And in 30 years, I could sell them for $1.5 million. Like, wow, what a small thought. But that's what I needed to get over the hurdle. Yeah, we have almost $100 million of real estate today. Never in a million years did I think where I'd be where I am today. But I just needed that little inkling of like, this is an obtainable goal and that's what I'm going to go do. And that's really what got me into the game of buying and selling real estate and ultimately creating rental properties.
So tell us that very first step. Like you have these thoughts, you're exercising them. Gosh, I got to get into real estate. What if I did this? What was the first step? Did you go and talk to a real estate agent and start looking at properties? Like what did you do?
Yeah, let's frame this up a little bit, like for just to give everyone like, where I was in my life. I mean, I'm like 28 years old at the point, maybe 29 years old. I have like a 5-something credit score. Thank God I had $15,000 in the bank. I don't know why I had $15,000 in the bank when I had all this debt. And I was like, I don't know, man, like I got to buy a piece of real estate. And my very first step, and I didn't know it at the time, was to go to a networking event and hear from other people. Go read the books, right? Bigger Pockets and online forums and all those other things didn't exist then. Maybe Bigger Pockets did, but I was like, okay, let me find a book on buying real estate. So I bought the Section 8 Bible because I knew I wanted to do subsidy housing through a client of my in-laws, that had bought Section 8 housing. And I was like, wow, I'm learning from all these other people. This is obtainable for them. And I was like, all right, well, if I can do the same steps they do, then I can do it. So for me, the first step was actually to learn, right? Like, and nowadays, YouTube University, TikTok, podcasts, dude, there's so much info. I tell people all the time, like, you can pay for coaching or you could probably go YouTube it all. It's out there. You just got to be willing to find it and learn about it. And there is something about paying for it that makes you pay attention more. However, I do believe that there's enough information on the internet today that'll allow you to be successful in real estate. And if you really want it bad enough, you can go do it. And you got to remember, side by side with all this, like I had to learn all these things and I had to know that real people were doing this, because my other problem was think about this, sitting in a firehouse with all type A personalities. Everybody thinks they're right. We're in and out of like some really bad houses. And everyone's like, oh, so you know that piece of crap house we were at the other day? That's a Section 8 house. I'm like, well, no, actually it's not, but okay, like, yeah, sure, whatever. The guys that are jaded, guys that already had opinions, those dudes all, they're all trying to take you down. So like my hurdle was that. So that's why I had to educate myself to then be able to get to that next step of even going to look at a house and trying to figure it out.
I think your circle is so important, right? Like sometimes we have to audit it a little bit and we have to figure out how to stay focused on our goal and stay self-motivated. And I would say that being self-motivated, we see this all the time in lots of different sales roles, especially in the mortgage and real estate industry. Probably one of the hardest things to do. Not everybody is wired that way. And so to be able to do that while working your job as a fireman and also having a lot of naysayers around you, like, nope, you can't, this doesn't make sense. This isn't going to work. But to do it anyway is incredible. How long did you kind of have to pull double duty, sort of teaching yourself while also being a firefighter full time before you were able to actually purchase your very first investment property?
Yeah, I mean, it took me about 6 months. We got involved in real estate in 2012, really formalized our company in 2014. Look, we had a lot of tailwinds. I'll be the first one to admit it. You could buy a house then, completely screw up, and it was worth more money in a few months. And the rent delta to the cost of property was insane. And lenders were just coming out of this hole, just starting to lend money. They were trying to get back in the game. So they were giving some really good, like my first rental property, I financed at 3.18% or something crazy like that with like barely a 600 credit score, right? So it took a little bit of time. It was about 6 months to get involved. And it was a lot of me just running road blockers. I literally put the blinders on and said, okay, guys, like, thank you for being concerned about me. Thank you for telling me every horror story from every other person that that's failed in life. And just because you're jealous, that's your problem. I know I can do this. And I'll tell you this, like, to skip forward a little bit ahead and to get a little forward on the question is, dude, the first house I bought was not the best house. I didn't do everything right. I had no clue. I didn't know what a balance sheet was, a profit and loss sheet. I didn't even know how to go ask a bank for money. Like, dude, I was over there swinging the hammer, right? And I knew my work ethic would outperform. And if I could do that, then I could battle through that. Then I can get to the next level. And it was a lot of just running blinders, dude. People, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Like, your circle, the 5 people around you, all those like networking, net worth, like all those like cheesy statements that people actually say are actually true, man. And like, the more I got around and the more successful we got, I saw a good meme the other day from a buddy of mine. He was like, at the bottom it's lonely, in the middle everyone's trying to tear you down, and at the top everybody collaborates. And that's the truth, man. And as we started to have success, more people were willing to help us. More people wanted to jump on board. More people wanted to invest with us. And I think getting out of that initial hole is the hardest thing in the world to do. But you know what's great? Every second's the time is now. Like, dude, like right now you're listening to this. Go do something now. Please listen to the end of the podcast, because I know Jamie and Brad would enjoy that, and I would too. But in the end, dude, you can go make the change right now. You can go do it. And I think that's important, and people forget about that because it's easy to be lazy. It's easy to be comfortable. And that's even in business as well. It's every step of your life. It's easy just to take, it's easy to take the easy road, right? And that's really what it is. You got to go do the hard work, and you got to know that you can do it.
100%. I think one of my favorite sayings is never take advice from somebody who hasn't been where you want to go. Cheesy, but true, right? Something I've noticed, Brad and I both had long journeys in the real estate and mortgage industry. I have, obviously as well. I noticed that not only does collaboration happen when you finally start to reach a certain, level of success, but also the mindset starts to shift from how do I get where I want to go to how do I continue to progress and get better, but also how do I go back to those people that are in the place that I was in before? And instead of being one of the naysayers, how do I extend the hand? And how do I help educate them so that maybe they don't have an easy time of it, but maybe they feel less alone than I felt when I was beginning. Is that something that you find resonates with you and is something that you've kind of noticed yourself?
Yeah, that's 100% true. The more you move on, the more you figure out a way to collaborate. And you know what? People start to do ask for help. And, there's the, how do you say this politely? I don't really have, I don't know how to do it. So people time suck you. It just happens,
Yep.
right? You go to all the events, it's the same dude or lady asking you the same question. It's like, oh my God, I talked to you for the last 6 events. Like, why haven't you done anything yet? And it drives you up a wall. And then you get to the point, yeah, we wrote a book so we could help more people. I would make people like my fireman friends all the time. Hey, can I come to your office? I want to figure this out. Okay, well, go get financially. We would sit down with them and say, hey, get financially squared away. And then we can take step 2. And as we had more success, when we quit the fire department, people are like, oh shit, this is real. I want in, right? Like, but part of it is making sure that people actually want to take the step. People think it's so easy. And that's also true in business, right? Like, what it takes to go from 0 to a million and a million to 5 to 10 million, whatever numbers you want to insert there. Sometimes you got to blow up your business and just start over. And whatever worked to get from 0 to a million might not work to go from a million to 5. And it sucks. You got to redo it. And too many people get so comfortable in doing that. And I found, me personally, like, actually, we're getting ready to host our mastermind event here in Charleston, probably before this comes out. But we're getting ready to do that. Dude, 25 of my favorite real estate investors that we invite into a room and say, hey guys, we're getting together. What do you guys want to hear about? Cool. Let's go get a leadership speaker. Let's go sit down and talk about the real problems, because I'm sure the 3 of us can sit in a room and talk about business problems, even though you're in the mortgage industry and I'm in operating real estate. I guarantee we have the same problems. And the more you can talk with other people that are actually doing business, no matter what industry they're in, you can get to the next step, because most of us that are successful know the block and tackle things to do. The people that don't, I'm willing to help them. Again, YouTube University, we put out a ton of content. You guys put out content. there's so much information out there. You can figure out those things to get to the next level. That's where we start to find people need groups and get to whatever they think the next level is, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And there's so much information out there. You can learn just about anything. You learn how to, master your social brand and all of that. I mean, the information is just abundant. I think what sometimes gets lost in the weeds is you'll be looking for information, and what you really want is a roadmap. There's a lot of information, but there's not that many roadmaps. And so that's where, say, masterminds and other network groups could do that. And not all are effective, by the way. And I've been involved in some, that have been extremely effective, and others that are like, I could have just done that research on my own. And so that's why when we do these kind of interviews and we find somebody that has carved a path, that started from nothing, that started from being a public servant to now being self-employed, and like you said at the beginning here, over $100 million of real estate. So I assume a lot of yours is buy and hold. But where did you start? Did you start with that? We had this conversation with somebody just recently, and I had a very interesting response. And it was what you just said about, hey, I've just thought about doing this and investigated and researched and read, and it's been 2 years. And it wasn't until I spoke with a mortgage broker and said, I want to buy an investment house, and they were motivated to figure it out, and they held my feet to the fire because they kept calling me until I finally pulled the trigger. And if it wasn't for that person, I would have probably waited another year. And so that was their starting point, right? So I like to find out, just going back to that question, like, exactly how did you start?
Yeah.
How did you buy that first property?
So the way we bought the first property was I went, say similar thing. A buddy of mine at work, where I was finished, we used to work days and nights. And he's like, hey man, instead of because we used to have this thing called swing shift, and you were going from your day works to your night work. So what would you do? Oh, I can go out and party all night and then not have to get up till 3 o'clock the next day. He's like, hey, instead of going to the bar, I'm going to go to this networking event. I said, okay. So I go to this networking event, and it was this lady was like, hey, I got this guy, Pete. He's coming in to talk about how he owns a few hundred Section 8 houses. I was like, holy crap. Like, I am so excited. So glad I came. He comes in. And then she's like, oh, Pete, thanks. But we're actually going to talk. It was like one of those, like, how to sell electric things. And she did the bait and switch. I said, hey, man. And this is where I had to get uncomfortable. I was like, hey, man, like, I'm really interested in what you do. You want to go to the bar and have a drink? Well, we went and had a drink. And, he told me all about what he does. And he said, hey, man, anytime you want, just call me and I'll take you and show you around. And everything he said was like literally every word I was reading out of this book about subsidized rentals. And I was like, dude, this guy's like a living, breathing, like, this guy must have read this book. There's like no way this guy's this smart. So like I meet up with him, we get there, and there's laminate floor. Okay, well, it said don't paint the floors anymore and don't have rugs. It's got laminate floor. Great. I said, what about garbage disposal? No garbage disposal. I'm like, I also said that in the book. What about screen doors? No screen doors. Okay. I was like, holy shit, like this guy's literally this book. I finally asked him, he's like, no, dude, I've been doing this forever. This is how you set up rental properties. And then he said, look, man, I don't know. I like you. If you actually want to buy a property, let me know, and I'll find you something. And I didn't know what wholesaling was. I didn't know anything. And I said to the dude, I said, all right, man. So a couple of days went by, I talked over with the wife. She's like, hey, I know we got bills, but that money in the bank's half of it's yours too. If you think it's a good idea, then go do it. I said, okay. So I called him back. I said, hey, man, if you ever find anything, just let me know. So a couple of weeks go by, he calls me back. He's like, hey, man, I got this property over. It's called the 4x4 because it's 4 blocks by 4 blocks. Genius name. And he's like, hey, I got a house over in the 4x4. And I was like, okay, well, that's not like a horrible area. It's marginal. So what do you think you get for rent? He's like, $1,250. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, how much do you think I need to put into it? I was going to be all into this thing for like 50 grand. And again, I didn't really keep track. It's like, all right, man. So I he brought me the house. I didn't understand what wholesaling was. I didn't understand the guy that made $5,000 because he found the deal. I didn't understand any of this, but I did it, right? And I found a hard money lender to give me the money. And I went out and I executed on that one deal. And then what happened at the end? I got a tenant for $1,250 a month. And I was like, holy crap, dude. Like I'm clearing more than one overtime shift with my cash flow of $600 a month on this one property. I was like, this is the best thing ever. And from there on out, I was hooked. And if I never put myself out there, if I never told people what I wanted to do, if I never went to that networking meeting, I would not be where I am today. And I would have just been another, oh, well, I would have liked to done that, you know? So I personally had to get uncomfortable with myself and reach out. And I think when you find something that you really want to do, you'll find yourself in situations you're like, I tell people all the time, like, we were out of our minds. I have no clue how we did what we did, but we did it because we wanted it so effing bad. And that's what it came down to. And I don't think people explore what they really enjoy enough to be able to go do that. And, you know, for me, it's like, as I look back on it, it's like, man, like, all right, I had success doing this. And then I find out more people are interested in what we're doing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to start showing people what we're doing because somebody showed me what to do to get to that next level. And it's a whole, you know, you get back what you put into the whole universe, right? And it's the same thing. And that's why I'm willing to help people. And that's why I'm willing to tell people what we're doing because somebody else has always showed me a way to get to that next level.
Yeah, that and this is what we talk about all the time. You know, you now have the template for it, and so it is easy for you to show you, just like that first guy showed you what to do. My guess is he introduced you to the hard money lender. So he actually gave you the tools as well. So he not only brought you the property, he said, here's the person you talk to, and everybody guided you through that process. And at the end of the day, you wound up with this property. Do you still own that property today?
Actually, we don't anymore. We owned it for about right around 10 years because that's about how long we've been in business. We just recently sold it. But you know what? That property served us and it did what it was supposed to do for a very long period of time. And it's like, man, that's pretty cool to think about what that property did for us and where it took us to what level we're at today. And that's pretty wild. So
Yeah, that's a good hold period.
yeah.
So then how did you got hooked on this? You bought that first property because we know that you're also involved in commercial property, you're involved in self-storage. Like, what's the evolution of that? Again, you know, talk about this through the prism of somebody that's listening that's not done that yet, that wants to embark on the first one, like you just did. Okay, maybe there's a template there for that, and we just heard it. But what's that next one look like? The one after that, that first commercial property. How did you get into self-storage? Are the properties that you own all in your vicinity? Do you buy outside of state? How do you manage that? So just kind of give us some insight into that process, that evolution, if you will.
Yeah, there's a lot to that question, and it's probably easy to look like. Let's just take it from let's go up to the point where we get into commercial real estate. We did one house, and I think any real estate investor can be successful at one project. You start stacking on several projects, it gets weird real quick, right? And I'm sure you guys see it from borrowers and operators all the time of like, man, you got one project that went great. And next, you know, they want to do 5 projects. And it's like, now you got a shit show on your hands. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to curse on your show, but that's what happens, man. And so for us, I did one house. 6 months later, I did another house. And I just over a 2-year period, I aggregated about 10 houses. And a really close friend of mine who I grew up outside of Philadelphia with came down to be a fireman, said, he got involved in wholesaling and he was like, hey, I got this package of properties. I want to wholesale 2 or 3 of them and I want to flip the 4th. And I said, okay, well, why do you need me? He's like, I don't know, man. Let's just do it together. You know, people that'll buy these turnkey homes. Let's go for it. So we did it and we made 6 figures. And we're like, holy shit. And then 6 months later, we did the same thing. So then in 2014, we formalized our company, Equity Warehouse is what we go by. And we said, all right, Dan, I said, Dan, if you think you can continue to find projects, I'll go find us money. And what happened was in a natural order of progression, and I needed this, right? Because you guys haven't figured out, I'm a little bit of a type I, you know, I got I in my personality type and I love talking and I'm visionary and everything's happy go lucky. And I'm a really happy person. And I'm like, next thing, next thing, next thing. And Dan's like, very, yo, dude, we haven't finished project one. Would you stop and just like get this complete? I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Hey, man, we got to pay the bills. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Got it. So we worked really well together, and he would go out and find the deals. I would go out and find the money, and we would work on putting the deals together. And we started flipping some houses, and we started building a rental portfolio side by side with that. And in a natural order of progression, it was like one of our capital investors challenged us to go out and find a project manager. And we're like, we're not paying someone $60,000 a year. We barely make that in the fire department. You're out of your mind. And we made hire number one. And it was just like, we built a process. And what we figured out in this whole process was we're really good at construction. That's what we love to do. Give us the crappiest looking property and we will fix it. And that's what we started to excel in. And those were the project types that we found. And we were able to find opportunities that other people weren't willing to take on. Burnout houses, falling down houses. You walk in and you can be in the basement and see the sunlight. Those were the projects that we wanted that nobody else wanted to touch. We were willing to take on the enduring pain. And we just consistently build a team. And over this, like from 2014 till about 2019, before we got priced out of the market, we were buying houses all day, every day. They were worth $150. We'd be all in for 120, and rent was $1,250. And I can tell you right now, 75% appraisal on 150 is $120,000. So some days we would get all our money out, other days we wouldn't. Some days we would get money back. But in the end, it was all kind of net neutral, and we were able to rinse and repeat, and just continue to build this 100-house portfolio on a template. Same wall colors, same designs, same washer dryers, same stoves, same granite, same everything. Then we started to build. It was a machine, and we were able to go, and the machine just kept chewing up inventory type. And that's really what allowed us to grow and really showed us like, cool, we're good at construction. What aren't we good on? Great. Ryan's now in charge of construction. Me and Dan can work on taxes, accounting, financing, all the other crap that nobody else wants to do that really makes a business successful. And I'm kind of taking us right up to like where we get into commercial real estate, because I know there's a lot to digest in that first part. So
yeah, well, actually, my next question was going to be, so you'd start getting priced out of the market on the residential stuff. So how do you pivot? How do you come up with the idea of this is how we're going to pivot?
Yeah, so we had a crazy run from 14 to 19, right? We flipped about 100 houses. We built a 100-house portfolio, and it was go, 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 go. And I could kind of see like the end was coming, and it was like, not the end, but like next thing you know, we were paying $20,000 for shells. People are paying $50,000 for shells, but rent was exactly the same. Values were exactly the same. I'm like, dude, what is going on? This is insane. So we slowed down our buying, but also side by side with that, property management started to pick up. Turnover started to pick up. All this other crap we weren't expecting started to chew up our time. And we're like, okay, well, we got to fix this. And like I said, I did not do well with that. It really crushed my soul not buying inventory, crushed my soul when we're not refinancing, we're not doing something. But thank God for Ryan and Dan, my business partner and our operations manager. They dialed in property management. They dialed in how we're going to handle turnovers, how we're going to evict people, all the maintenance requests, hiring maintenance staff. And as they're doing that, what I'm doing, you got to remember, now we're working 24-hour shifts at work, right? And I would literally around the clock be on the phone looking at everybody else's commercial deals, because we had a little glimmer. We bought a 7-unit apartment building. We bought a 6,000 square foot warehouse. And we found out really quick that like those deals were like all the same amount of work to get one tenant paying us $1,200 rent. And it was like, man, that's cool. Like we bought a 7-unit apartment building that pays us $8,000 a month in gross revenue, and we make a few $1,000s a month in the bottom line. And it's like, man, I'd rather do that. How do we do more of that? So I started studying other people's offerings. I started looking into coaching again, because I was like, well, maybe I need a coach to get us to the next level. How do I get us? I put commercial real estate on this pedestal because you know what happens in this whole time frame? And I'm sure you guys got plenty of people in your book of business that do the same thing. I can tell you what any house in Baltimore is worth on any street within 2 seconds, because we're in it every day. I don't have to underwrite deals. So now you are sitting here telling me, hey, man, I need to look at this 50-unit apartment building in whatever town. and I need to figure out how to underwrite. Man, that's work. I'm out. Right. And I made it hard to get to the next level because I wasn't willing to put in the work. I was comfortable in what we were doing. And it really took me getting out of my shell and starting to underwrite deals, starting to talk to other operators again. Again, going back to what I initially did to get into real estate, what worked to go from zero to where we are today to that next level took a whole new set of skills and just a lot of practice underwriting until I'd find a deal that actually worked. A lot of talking to brokers until I found a deal that worked. And also building and establishing the lender relationships, the capital relationships we needed in the single family space that then transferred into commercial real estate. And our big step away from like that 7-unit building, because that's kind of like, in my opinion, a baby step. It was big, but it was a baby step. We learned how to do a LOI, a letter of intent. We learned how to get commercial financing. We learned how to do a phase 1. We learned how to do a survey. Now it's like, okay, let's go apply it. Well, we had an opportunity to buy 34 apartment units in West Virginia, which was about an hour from our office. And Brad, I'm kind of getting to your point of operating storage outside of our state, is that allowed us to get comfortable with putting a property manager in place, being just far enough removed that we can't just leave the office and go fix the problem. We had to rely on other people. And buying that 34 unit apartment building that cost us $1 million something bucks, it was like, that was a big deal. And that took us to that next level. I was like, man, that was easy. Like that was all that work I did for that 34 units. I'd do the same amount of work for one single family house. And it was so relative. I was like, wow, that's cool. And that led us into saying we wound up buying a 76 unit apartment building. But after that, there was no runway into multifamily because it's such a high demand class. And we didn't want to go and buy apartment buildings all across the country because people living in your units, habitational, COVID really proved who's in charge and who's not in charge, what states are willing to do what. And it led us down this road into self-storage and industrial warehousing, where we were able to operate. We were able to diversify away from Baltimore. All of our stuff's in the Southeast, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas. We operate in those states away from our home, thousands of miles away from our home. It's an industry that we can automate away from home, remote workers, and buying those commercial assets. Again, it was all of our experience in the single family real estate and a couple commercial assets that then allowed us to take to that next big leap into commercial real estate. And it truly has changed the trajectory of our company and where we're going to go. And it's really exciting because, again, it could have been so easy just to sit there and, I don't want to say dilly-dally because people do single family real estate at a really high level, but I could have just kept doing that. But for us, there was something bigger in the commercial real estate world because there's bigger equity pops. There's ways to get more capital investors involved, in our opinion, in the commercial real estate space. And that's why we're continuing to go down that road.
Did you wind up with a lot of issues over COVID with your residential properties?
Yeah, so this is not a political statement. It's just the truth. We're in a very blue state, in a very blue city, and we dealt with a lot of issues of not being able to evict, which was fine, but then they weren't releasing the relief money to us. So it's like, well, you can't evict, you can't extend your lease, you can't increase your rent, but then you won't pay any of the eviction protection money. And it got really hard to be a real estate operator in habitational real estate. But in our self-storage portfolio, we didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
In West Virginia, I could still evict people in 30 days. And
Yeah.
It was like, look, here's the thing. Politics aside, and you guys can guess what side of the street I'm on. And I don't care who you voted for. In the end, it's just what's right and wrong. If you actually had an issue from COVID, I'm willing to help you. Just tell us that you've lost your job and you're not working. We will work something. We're not these horrible people. We will work it out with you. Just be honest and truthful with us. We can navigate it. It was when people started using COVID as the excuse, then that
That's
put
the
us into
problem.
this.
They
Yeah,
didn't have an issue and they could have afforded it and they got moved to remote. They're still getting the same thing, the same
Yep.
pay, but they stopped paying because of the protection they were offered. So yeah,
Yeah.
it looked like most residential investors over that period of time, the vast majority did get hurt and it was painful. And then few just did okay. They had good tenants and they worked it out, or they had tenants that communicated and said, I need 3 months off and I'll make it up to you later. So, being in commercial and self-storage, you don't have those same issues. You don't have to deal with those same things. Somebody stops paying, you lock the storage unit up, and then you have an auction and you get rid of the stuff that's in there and you find them on, what is that, Auction Wars on
Yeah,
which is kind of
exactly.
fun, but it's a whole different thing. I've heard, and by the way, I've never invested in self-storage. It's been something that has been on the periphery of my radar for a long time. And the few times I've thought about getting into it, I'd look around. I'm like, where the hell do people find these things for sale? The good ones are like they're cash cows and nobody's selling them. But obviously, you found a way to break into that market. I'd be curious how that happened and how you continue to find those. I subscribe to Crexy. I got my my parameters in there. I see the self-storage units that come up every now and then, and when I start to punch down the numbers, I'm like, I don't know if this one really works. But then again, I'm not super adept at it, and it's not my primary focus. So curious, that transition and how, obviously it's worked out well for you, but how do you bird dog those, and how do you decide what's a good one and what isn't?
Yeah, so if you guys picked it up when we were talking about single family real estate, was construction was our wheelhouse. So when I started going to apply our skill set to commercial real estate, I would talk to the brokers. I'm like, give me the shittiest one you got. What do you got? Like, I know you got something deep down. Oh, I got this one deal that I can never get sold because of X, Y, and Z. Let me think about it. Like, let me take a look at it. I'll make you an offer. Might not be right, but I'll look at it. And that's really where we started to build relationships. Because in the commercial world, as you execute on deals, more and more brokers will start to feed you deals. And we really started to build a knack for that. And a lot of the deals that are listed are marginal. But that's where building the relationship with the broker comes in and starting to talk to him and say, well, what's the real price? How are you making this work? Some of it was trial by error, and some of it was, okay, here's the value add opportunity. And it was finding the mom and pop deals that weren't online. It's finding the deals that needed all new doors, needed gates, needed security systems, needed technology applied. We really like the deals that you can step in and doesn't need a ton of capex, and you just need to apply management skill sets to it. And from an underwriting standpoint, the cool thing about storage is it is month-to-month leases. So if a market rate for a 10 by 10 unit, say, is $100, and your tenants are paying $50, and you can move people in because it's a market that has a ton of demand in it, you could go in there day one and say, cool, thanks for paying the other guy, but we're moving our rates to $85 for that 10 by 10. And people are going to leave. But guess what? You're going to fill up new people with $100 rents, and your average is going to increase, and you can do that in a quick fashion. So for us, we would always look for deals that needed CapEx, some sort of expansion, something that we could apply our skill sets to make the property improved and cooler and generate more revenue that would then ultimately increase the NOI. Because the big difference, and this is why I love commercial real estate, this is what I talk to all my groups about, is you guys know in the single family real estate, let's say I go in and improve a house and I can get the market rent's $1,250, but I could get $3,000 because I know some secret. Well, that's cool and all. You're not going to get any more value out of your property because you're still confined by what your neighbor's house is worth. In commercial real estate, if I can get that same rent up to $3,000 and I can show the NOI and that it's real, well, guess what? I can get more value out of it when I go to sell it or when I go to refinance it, because I can prove that the value is there. And it's not really based on what my neighboring self-storage property is worth. Yeah. And that's where commercial real estate's cool. Every piece of commercial real estate we buy and we view it as we're buying a business. Each one is its own operating business, and we're trying to drive that NOI up to increase the value. And the ceiling, I don't want to say is uncapped, but the ceiling is as high as you can drive that revenue. Yeah. I know businesses, maybe there's an unlimited ceiling, and the properties you're confined by how many square foot you could rent. But in the end, you drive revenue, you will drive value, ultimately giving you a better sale equity and or a better refinance long-term for yourself and better cash flows.
Yeah, very true. There's a very clear distinction between a commercial investment and a residential investment in all facets. What you just said is poignant, but also about qualifying. when you buy commercial property, the property qualifies for that loan, not you as an individual. So that's something that a lot of people don't understand. When you go to buy residential property, and we're talking primarily 1 to 4 family, if you're over 4 family, 5+ units, it's still considered commercial financing. It's based on the revenues of the property and the expenses and all of that. But if you're 1 to 4 family, it's going to be largely dependent on your own income, your own qualifying circumstances. When you get into commercial property, it's about the property itself. So what Ian is saying is that the better you can create opportunity for increased revenue and more efficiency for your expenses, you're going to increase the value of that asset, which gives you the opportunity at some point down the road to recapitalize, meaning getting your funds back out of it, maybe a little bit more than that, and have additional value, and ultimately maybe even sell it if that's part of your plan, and to migrate into maybe something larger down the road. I recently, to the token of what you just mentioned, Ian, which is you're finding these properties because they are mom and pop owners and operators that are at the end of their life cycle. They haven't done anything to the property in a long time. They're dilapidated. They need upgrading. They haven't raised rents. They don't want to, disturb the harmony of what's there currently. They don't want the effort of getting more people in. They're not marketing it properly anyway. And there's where the opportunity lies. I just, and not as an operator, but as an investor, invested in a boutique hotel fund that does very similar. As you can imagine, boutique hotels are like short-term rentals on steroids, if you will. They're short-term rentals, but they're multiple units. And you have that same ability to go in, and most of those are owned and operated by, elderly couples that they've been in the family part of the business for a long time. And it's time to move away from them, and they've just not been operated efficiently, and in fact probably take up a unit or two for the managers or the owners, and can be really capitalized and brought to a much higher value. So totally understand that process. What I'd like to do is understand, you said you find them because you kind of befriend these local agents that are in the area, these commercial agents, and you're doing that across state lines. So I imagine you're reaching out online to different brokers in different states and saying what you look for. But then when they do present you with an opportunity, are you flying out to visit these things? Are you writing an LOI first, getting it under contract with something you think will work, and then flying out? What's your process?
Yeah, for us, I like to scour. I scour a lot. And while I might not, you hear people say, I underwrite hundreds of deals till I find one. Well, I don't say I formally underwrite hundreds of deals, but I watch my email. I'm a hawk on that. I watch everybody's deals come out. When I'm bored at night, if my kids haven't ran me into the ground, I will go on Crexy and LoopNet and CoStar. Excuse me, and I will comb and scour, and I just like looking, and you start seeing similar names, and then you pick up the phone on a deal that you feel is marginal because you underwrote it, and you talk to the broker. And establishing relationships with the commercial brokers in the world, they are the gatekeeper. And as you build relationships, the better it gets. There's a buddy of mine who's down in Alabama, and I'm a big Eagles fan. And we were working on a deal together, and we didn't really know each other. I'm like, dude, I got to figure out how to break the ice with this guy because he's got this $11 million deal that I want to buy. And we're going back and forth, and we're going back and forth. I was like, oh, yeah, where'd you go to college? He's like, Alabama. I was like, oh, dude, so what do you think about Gelin and Devontae and, talking about all the Eagles and everything else that came from Alabama? And he's like, oh, I was at school the same time with them. And that became our bond. And we're buying this deal in the fall. So every week I'll be like, yo, dude, who's the bet this week, right? And just building that rapport. Next thing you know, he's feeding me deals left and right. He's like, oh, yeah, by the way, I got this deal coming. Oh, by the way, I got this deal coming. So I'm getting first look. When I got the deals come across my plate, the big difference maybe from single family to single family, I go drive by the house and see it because 9 times out of 10, it's in your backyard. In the commercial world, I'm looking at the numbers, popping it into my quick underwriting template. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. Then I'm putting it into a more formal, and then I'll usually call the broker back and say, hey, man, I ran through the numbers. Seems like a decent deal. What do they want for it? Or I'm coming up with this number. Is that realistic? Yeah, put it on paper. Okay. Well, then I'll go back and formally underwrite it, run through the numbers, and say, okay, well, that makes sense to me, or it doesn't. It does make sense. Then I'll write a letter of intent. There's a lot more steps. I sit down with my business partner, we do a deal committee and all these other fun things. But then I'll send a letter of intent over to the broker and say, hey, man, I'm interested in buying this. And then usually if we can get an LOI accepted, then I schedule a trip to wherever I need to go and go look at the property, go walk it, gain access. The big difference in commercial real estate is technically they don't have to give you information until you're in a due diligence study period, it's called. And that's when you get access to the property. That's when you get access to the leases and the books. Everything else up to that usually is hypothetical, or they've told the broker it. If you work the brokers for the information, they'll usually give it to you, because here's the thing. The brokers want you to be successful in the deal because they want to get paid. And on a rated R version of this episode, I would tell you what I really think of them and how I view them. But they got something you want, and you got something they want, and they're in the middle. So what does that make them, right? You guys can plug in whatever word you want. In the end, they got that. And they want you to be successful. So they'll feed you the information. Again, it comes down to communication and rapport. So once that deal's under contract, then we do our site visits. We walk through the property. We don't pay for, some people get PCR reports, property condition report. We don't. We usually walk them ourselves unless unique scenarios where the lender requires them. We walk it. We audit the locks. We audit the buildings. We audit the units that are available or not available. We go and drive the competition. This could be for multifamily, storage, industrial, doesn't matter. We'll look up all of our competition and go drive it. Again, we're in business. We're in competition with these other people, and we want to know what the market dictates. We also, you can Google map all you want. Like I looked up your guys' office, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I know how to get it in and out of there. But then if your office was a storage facility, I would sit there and say, well, how many people are coming to that side of that road? You guys are on the northern edge of this main thoroughfare. How many people from the south are going to actually travel up to this storage facility? So I'll go and drive and say, this is my 5-mile radius or my 3-mile radius, and say, well, what's my best route of travel to get to this storage facility? How many other storage facilities do I have to pass? Those are things that you cannot replace by doing it virtually, and you have to be on the ground to do it. But we will not spend $1 9 times out of 10 until we have that property under contract to go do those types of things.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So taking it back a little, I mean, you've obviously evolved from somebody that was completely self-taught as a residential real estate investor, coming from, background being a firefighter. Now you're in the commercial space, including self-storage. Very different price point for any type of property today than it was 10 plus years ago. So if I am the listener that is in the position that you were in 11, 12 years ago, what kind of advice would you give them in today's market to even begin?
Yeah. Swing the bat. I mean, that's my only piece of advice, but I think about it, and I think it came up twice so far in our careers. We started buying real estate in 2012. Everybody else had trauma from the global financial crisis. I'm walking around picking flowers. I'm like, this is great. What do you mean? Banks won't lend? I don't even know what you're talking about, right? Same thing happens in COVID, because all the people that had trauma from the global financial crisis are sitting there going, this is the next GFC. Everything's going to shut down. I'm like, well, it worked for me then, so I'm going to continue to operate my business. I took maybe 3 deep breaths and said, okay, you guys got a few days. After a few days, I'm like, well, there's nothing going on here. We're going to continue to do business. And as things were open, we were open for business during this. There was no pencils down, the same way as today. There is no pencils down. We are always underwriting. We are always looking at deals. And I'm sure that I probably know the number. You guys been in business for a while. If I ask you how many deals you wish you could have done that, you would have done then today, because now you know what the outcome is, it's all of them, right? We all know, damn, I wish I held on to that house just a little bit longer. Or I would have bought this deal or that deal, And all I can say is the best day to buy real estate is today, and the next best day is tomorrow. And the worst day was yesterday, right? All you can do is go out and do it. Look, it does not matter what the market is. Warren Buffett is the richest man in the world because he has the test of time. That's what he has over all of us. He has time. Yeah, he's got a lot of money, but he has time. And a lot of us don't have that time yet. My best performing assets are 10 years old. My worst performing assets, relatively speaking, are my newest ones, right? Because I haven't had a chance to operate them, learn all the kinks, operate them on a day-to-day basis. And if you look in any market, up, down, right, or left, it does not matter. You will find a deal. I mean, how many businesses, if you go listen to the radio right now, oh, everybody's shutting down until the election. Cool, shut down. I'm still looking for deals, right? Like we're still bullish on finding deals. Development's horrible right now. Cool, we're looking at development deals, right? Like there's got to be opportunity there because we got blinders on and we're willing to continue to find the right deals for us. And again, the best deal you can do is the one you're going to find today. You will find a deal in any market. Is it as good as it was in 2008? No. Is the value is going to be what they were in 2008? No. Who knows? Maybe they're going to be worth more. None of us know. If we had a crystal ball, I would have Brad and Jamie on my private jet, and we'd be flying to my private island, and we'd be doing a podcast from there. None of us know. You got to do what's right for you today. And I view we view ourselves as a family office. Our job is to manage our family's wealth and all of our co-investors' wealth. And while we're not some big sophisticated shop, we have this fiscal responsibility to find the best deals we can. And you need to treat your capital in the same respectful fashion and find the best deal that you can today.
Very good.
I'm hearing a lot of things that resonate with me, and I know Brad too, is people have been in this industry for a really long time, and it really is a lot about your mindset. It's a lot about the blinders. The blinders is probably one of the most incredible tools that you can ever teach yourself in your arsenal. It's not basing your business decisions on what everybody else thinks and says or predicts, but instead growing through anything. If your only mindset is, how am I going to get better tomorrow than I was today? It doesn't matter what's happening around you because opportunity exists everywhere if you look for it and if you're willing to work for it. And sometimes in some markets, we have to work 4 times as hard in the mortgage industry for the same deal that we could have gotten more easily in the past. But if you're willing to work 4 times as hard, you never go into the mode where you're coasting, then you're always going to find the wins. And I think that you seem to have really found that mindset in that place. It's one that Brad and I have used to get us through many a market cycle that has taken other companies out, that has, caused people to lose everything they had. But we just kept doubling down and believing and knowing from experience, all cycles correct themselves, all cycles restart themselves. And if you've got the wherewithal mentally to keep getting out of bed every day and just keep moving forward, then you're going to find those opportunities. I think it's an incredible message. And I think that you're spot on.
And I think that message comes from, where does that come from in us? It's like, hey man, that place is on fire. You cannot leave until that fire's out. And while we might not have directly understood that, it's like, oh, we go to our business. It's like, well, that fire's burning. Okay, well, we're dumb enough to come back. We used to say it all the time. We're dumb enough to come back every day and continue to do it until that fire's out. And that's what we were willing to do. And I think our work ethic is what gets us to that next level. And you guys are the same way. If you're willing to put in the work, most people aren't. A lot of people just want to throw money at problems, throw employees at problems, rather than just getting dirty and going and say, what is wrong here? Let's fix it. I don't know if this is on video or not, but my shirt's dirty. Literally, me and my business partner and my operations manager, because we had nobody else available because we had another issue elsewhere, we're literally just swapping out a water heater because we're the ones that it had to get done today in one of our Airbnbs. It had to get done. So we went and did it. Most people are like, all right, just go pay $1,000 and pray to God the plumber shows up. Sorry, guest, we screwed up. No, dude, that guest is coming in this property, and if they're coming to our property, it's going to be squared away and right. And if it takes us getting dirty, it happens. It is what it is. So
Ian, let's finish up with this. I'd like to, because people that are listening to this and they've heard this the whole way through, they're going to be interested in Equity Warehouse, right? They're going to hear your story. They're going to hear your tenacity and the fact that you roll up your sleeves and you get dirty, and they're going to say, hey, I wonder what his investment fund is like. So take just 5 minutes here before we finish up and tell us the structure of that. Is that an equity fund? What's the expectation? What are your minimum investments? What's your investment thesis? What could be the expected, target rate of return? What's your plan with that?
Yeah, so we always look for deals that, again, we can apply our skill set to. Construction, right? Value add type deals that need a facelift, the deals that other people aren't willing to take on, stuff that we know we can apply our team to execute on construction. So most of the time, it is heavy value add deals that allow us to get equity multiples and returns. We're pretty standard to the market, 15 to 20% IRR and a 2x, 3x multiple, depending if it's development or whatever it may be. And we do everything on a deal by deal basis. We don't, we call everyone our co-investors. They are investing side by side with us. They're our friends and they're our family. They're people that we establish relationships with. Don't ask me what securities thing we use, but we have SEC filings, and whatever letter it is that allows me to raise capital from investors is the one that I have. And we do it on a deal by deal basis. A lot of the times we have some sort of.
So just to clarify, you raise money as you get a deal. You don't have money sitting in a fund, so you're not paying a preferred rate for money sitting there. You're going out almost like a hard money lender or a private money lender. You're saying, hey, I've got this deal. Here are the parameters of the deal. I need, 300,000, we're going to do 50 minimums, here, and you contact your investors and say, are you in on this one?
Yep. Yeah. If you go to equitywarehouse.com, you can get to our investment portal and see case studies of how we co-invest and co-lend with our friends and family. And yeah, it's a deal by deal basis. Like, I'd love to just randomly pay people 8% and execute on it. But I don't, we want to do it on a deal by deal, more direct type placement into the deals. And, anywhere from 6 to 8% preferred equity plus upside. Some people that will just want lend and want more consistency, we're seeing anywhere from 8 to 10%. Again, deal by deal requirements, needs. We've done our deal structure changes. We have a set template that we like to use, but sometimes the deal changes. Like, we just did a deal where we split it 50-50 with our capital investors, but there's also no preferred return, and it's a short-term hold. So we gave up, in our eyes, more equity in exchange to give up that preferred return, but the capital investors get more depreciation, they get more upside, they get a little bit of everything. So
interesting. Okay, yes. No, that's helpful because, doing it deal by deal gives you a lot more flexibility. Whereas when you have a true investment thesis and you've got your targets and your recapitalization periods and your exit periods, that's where you kind of get into that more, the investor is looking for a more stable return as a preferred return. And then, the upside of, the recap and the exit. So,
in the end, I just want to be able to explain however we're investing in the deal. I want to be able to sit down, have a beer with you. I don't ever want there to be a question to say, oh, well, you said the IRR was going to be this before this waterfall metric triggered, and then this, that, and that would happen, and I can't explain it to you. I don't ever want to be in a situation where we're having a beer or coffee or anything in between, whatever it is your drink of choice, and you're like, I feel like I was cheated. I do not want that. I want to be able to sit down, look you in the eye, have a good conversation about the investment. You got yours, I got mine, and we keep it moving.
So much easier to talk about, when you reach that third or fourth beer too.
Third or fourth beer, the world's problem solved. So don't worry about it.
So, hey, Ian, thanks for spending time with us today. If people want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
Yeah, we're on all the social sites, Equity Warehouse. I'm the most active on Instagram, or you can check us out at equitywarehouse.com. You want to learn how we co-invest and co-lend with our friends and family. And currently I'm doing a $50 million acquisition challenge over at cre-syndicate.com. We show everybody how we're trying to buy $50 million worth of real estate. I started in July. I have till December 31st. If everything closes, we're sitting right around $40 million. So I got to find $10 more million of deals before the end of the year. It's getting real close, but we'll see what happens and go from there. So that's been real fun.
Fantastic. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you.
Get Real 411 is hosted by Brad Rice and Jamie Cavanaugh and presented by Amerifund Home Loans. Learn more about the show at getreal411.com and watch full episodes on YouTube. If you're interested in being a guest, email booking@getreal411.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.